What if the face of evil wears a smile sharper than any blade? What if its voice is silk wrapped in shadow, and its gaze holds you not with fear but fascination, as though you were the prey that chose to walk willingly into the jaws of the wolf? You believe yourself safe because you recognize the mask. But what lies beneath it is older than morality, colder than the void between stars, and far more intimate than you dare admit. It does not knock at your door. It walks through walls you didn't know were crumbling. You speak of sanity as if it were armor, a boundary between you and the chaos you imagine exists only out there. But what if the mirror you so rarely look in is already cracked, silently, invisibly, and from that fracture seeps a whisper? Perhaps madness is not the absence of reason, but the perfection of it. The psychopath does not suffer delusions. He sees the world without the veil of pity, without the comforting illusion of shared truth. He is a sculptor of perception, carving trust like marble, shaping love like clay, and dismantling both with the elegance of God who no longer believes in heaven. Have you ever wondered why beauty so often conceals the sharpest teeth? Why charm can be a cage more refined than iron? You have met him, perhaps in a glance, a word too perfectly placed, a silence that lingered like smoke after a fire long extinguished. He did not announce himself. He never does. He moves among us like a thought half remembered, familiar yet alien, as if he knew something about you that you have not yet dared to name. And in his presence, something inside you stirs, not fear, not desire, but a deeper tremor, recognition. You cling to labels, sick, broken, abnormal, as if they could contain what cannot be categorized by law or science. But the psychopath is not an error. He is an evolution, a species born not of nature, but a negation. He thrives where empathy dies, flourishes where meaning dissolves. He does not seek power for control's sake. No, his hunger is subtler. He craves the annihilation of your certainty. He wants nothing less than to unmake your belief in goodness, to seduce your conscience into questioning whether light was ever more than the absence of understanding. And now, as you stand at the threshold of this abyss, not the one outside, but the one within, ask yourself, do you truly wish to descend? For once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you understand, you can never again pretend ignorance. The mind of the psychopath is not merely a subject to be studied. It is a mirror polished by cruelty and kissed by clarity. Will you turn away as most do, or will you stare, not at him, but at your own reflection, and dare to confront what stares back with eyes as cold and infinite as the night? Have you ever stood before a mirror and wondered if what stared back was truly you, or merely the echo of a self sculpted by expectation, fear, and the soft tyranny of convention? You wear your face as though it were armor, yet beneath lies a tremor of something older than identity, something that stirs when silence lingers too long and the world feels just slightly off. You call it intuition, but what if it is memory? Memory not of events, but of essence, of a truth buried so deep within the marrow of your being that only in dreams or madness does it whisper its name. The psychopath does not dream. He remembers. He does not feel pain. He dissects it. And in his presence, you do not tremble from danger, but from recognition. For he walks without illusion, unburdened by the weight of morality, untouched by the need for absolution. He does not seek redemption because he has never fallen. To him, the world is not broken. It simply pretends to be whole. And in this pretense, you find comfort. But comfort is the enemy of clarity. It is a velvet shroud that blinds you to the raw architecture of existence. You speak of empathy as if it were virtue, as if kindness were proof of goodness. But what if empathy is merely another mask worn by those too afraid to stare into the abyss without flinching? The psychopath sees through you, not with malice, but with a gaze so pure it cuts through performance and lands upon the trembling core of your being. He does not lie, he reveals, not out of cruelty, but necessity, because truth, Once seen, cannot be denied. And in his reflection, you glimpse not evil, but absence, an emptiness so vast it terrifies you precisely because you suspect you have touched it yourself. There are moments, are there not, when the noise of the world dims and all that remains is the sound of your own breath, a flicker behind the eyes, a question that arrives without warning. What if I am not who I believe myself to be? That question is not born of doubt. It is born of proximity. Proximity to the void that stares back not only from the eyes of a psychopath, but from the depths of your own shadow. You recoil at the thought of becoming him. Yet how often have you chosen silence over truth? How many times have you smiled when rage burned inside? How frequently have you loved not with passion, but with calculation? You tell yourself that you are different, that your conscience protects you. But conscience is a construct, a fragile edifice built on shifting sands. And when the storm comes, loss, betrayal, despair, how quickly it crumbles. The psychopath does not mourn. He adapts. He does not suffer. He absorbs. And in doing so, he becomes something else entirely. Something beyond good and evil, beyond love and hate, beyond even the notion of self. He is not human in the way you understand humanity. He is a species born in negation, a will untethered from guilt, a desire stripped of apology. Do you remember the first time someone looked at you and saw through the mask? Perhaps it was a lover, perhaps a stranger, perhaps it was yourself in a moment of rare and terrible honesty. In that instant, something shifted. Not fear, no, that came later. First came recognition, as though some part of you had always known this other existed, had always walked beside you unseen, unheard, until that singular second when the veil lifted and you saw, truly saw, the shape of the void that lives not only in others, but in you. You tell stories to make sense of the world. You build narratives to contain chaos, to give meaning to suffering. But what if the story is a prison? What if meaning is a chain that binds you to a reality you did not choose, yet cannot escape? The psychopath does not need stories. He lives in the space between them, in the silence that follows the final word, in the pause before the next act begins. He does not perform. He exists, and in his existence, he unravels your certainty like thread pulled from the edge of a tapestry. There's a moment, fleeting, electric, when the predator locks eyes with the prey, not to frighten, but to know. In that gaze is no hatred, no hunger, only absolute clarity. The prey understands in that instant that it is seen, not as a victim, not as food, but as being, and in that understanding, something dies, not the body, but the illusion of control. This is the power of the psychopath. Not destruction, but revelation. Not violence, but exposure. He does not kill the soul. He removes the veil that kept you from seeing it. You cling to labels as if they could protect you. Psychopath, sociopath, monster, words that distance you from the unbearable possibility that he is not the aberration. You are, that your need for morality, for empathy, for meaning itself is the anomaly, that your belief in love and justice and hope, these are not truths but strategies, tactics employed by the weak to survive a world that offers no guarantees. The psychopath needs none of this. He stands alone not because he chooses to, but because he must, because to stand with others will require pretending. And pretense is the death of authenticity. And yet, you envy him. Admit it. There is something seductive about his detachment, his elegance and deception, his mastery of perception. He moves through life not as a participant, but as a sculptor shaping clay with fingers both cruel and precise. He does not beg for approval. He does not plead for love. He takes what he wants, not with force, but with the quiet authority of one who knows that all things belong to him by right of will. And in watching him, you feel something stir, not admiration, not fear, but a deeper, more unsettling sensation. Longing. You have felt it, haven't you? That flicker of freedom. The moment when the rules no longer applied. When you acted not out of obligation, but out of sheer, unfiltered will. Perhaps it was small, a lie told with such ease it startled you, a decision made without consulting anyone's expectations but your own. Or perhaps it was larger, a betrayal, a theft, a silence that spoke louder than words. In that moment, you stepped outside the boundary of what you believed yourself capable of, and instead of horror, you felt exhilaration, as if, for the first time, you had touched the edges of your true nature. This is the secret the psychopath guards, that morality is not innate, but imposed. That goodness is not a state of being, but performance demanded by society, and that beneath every noble sentiment, every sacred value, every whispered prayer, there lies a hunger not for survival, but for power. Not power over others, but power over oneself. The power to choose, to create, to destroy, to become. This is the will to power, not as conquest, but as self-overcoming. And in the mind of the psychopath, it is lived without compromise, without apology, without illusion. You think yourself safe because you feel remorse, because you know shame. But what if these are not virtues, but chains? What if the capacity to feel guilt is not a sign of moral superiority, but a symptom of weakness, of a soul too afraid to confront its own darkness? The psychopath does not carry burdens. He does not weep for the past. He does not apologize for the future. He simply is. And in his presence, you begin to question whether your conscience is a voice of wisdom or merely the echo of someone else's fear. There is a seduction in his stillness, in the way he watches without blinking, speaks without hesitation, moves without effort. He does not react, he responds. And in that response is a precision that unsettles you, because it suggests awareness. Awareness not only of himself, but of you, of the parts of you that you keep locked away. Hidden even from your own gaze, he sees the cracks in your mask, the tremors in your voice, the hesitations that betray your true desires. And rather than judge, he understands, not with compassion, but with a clarity so sharp it leaves you defenseless. You want to hate him, you want to condemn him, but hatred requires distance. And the terrifying truth is that you cannot look away, because in his eyes, you see not the monster you were taught to fear, but the God you were never allowed to become, a being unshackled by guilt, unburdened by pity, unafraid of consequence. And in that vision, you glimpse something forbidden, possibility. The possibility that you, too, could walk through fire without burning, that you, too, could smile while the world collapsed around you, that you, too, could be cold and beautiful and free. But freedom is not given, it is taken. And taking it requires a descent into the depths of your own shadow, into the place where light and dark are no longer enemies, but lovers. The psychopath does not descend, he resides there. And in doing so, he becomes something neither man nor beast, neither saint nor sinner. He becomes other. And in that otherness, he finds not salvation, but sovereignty. A kingdom built not of gold or land, but of absolute self-possession. You ask why he does not change, why he does not seek redemption. But he does not need to. Redemption is for the guilty. Transformation is for the incomplete. He is neither. He is whole, not in the way you understand wholeness, but in the way a blade is whole, sharp, silent, lethal. He does not seek forgiveness because he has never asked for permission, and in that refusal, he denies the very foundation upon which your world is built. He is the wound that refuses to heal, the truth that refuses to be buried, the mirror that refuses to lie. And now, standing before him, or perhaps within him, you feel the weight of your own choice. Do you turn away, as most do, and retreat into the comforting embrace of illusion? Or do you take the step forward into the unknown, into the cold brilliance of what waits beyond the boundaries of your constructed self? The path is narrow, the cost is high, but the reward is nothing less than the liberation of the will. For in the end, the mind of the psychopath is not a place of madness, but of clarity, not a prison, but a throne. And once you see it for what it truly is, not a disease, but a destiny, you will never again be able to pretend ignorance. The mask will slip, the veil will tear, and in the silence that follows, you will hear the echo of your own name, spoken not by another, but by the voice that has waited, patient and unyielding, at the edge of your consciousness. You'll walk through the fire and emerge not unscathed, but transformed, though you may not yet recognize the shape of what you have become. The mirror still stands before you, but now its surface ripples like water disturbed by something rising from below. Not a monster, not a savior, something older than either word. You were told that to be human was to feel, to love, to suffer. But what if to be truly human is to will, to carve meaning from chaos, to create in the absence of certainty, to walk alone without trembling? The psychopath does not seek your approval, nor your fear. He exists as a question you were never meant to ask yourself. What remains when everything you believed essential is stripped away? And in daring to look into that void, you have touched the edge of your own becoming. Not the self crafted by others, shaped by praise and punishment, but the self that chooses, that creates, that dares. So now, as silence settles around you like ash after flame, hear this final whisper from the abyss. You are not who you were before you began this journey, and you will never again see the world with the same eyes. That is both the burden and the blessing of awakening. If you feel the tremor of truth within you now, if something ancient and nameless stirs beneath your skin, then do not turn away. Do not retreat into comfort. For comfort is the enemy of creation. Stand instead at the threshold. Look beyond the known. And ask yourself, not with fear, but with fire, who would I become if I no longer feared the darkness within me? And having asked, dare to find out. If you felt the weight and freedom of this truth, then leave your mark here with a comment that does not merely respond, but reveals. Share this moment not as a secret, but as a flame passed forward, like not out of impulse, but out of recognition, and subscribe not out of habit, but out of choice. For those who seek not only entertainment, but transformation, know that the path does not end here. It only begins.